Well, Keir Giles is Senior Consulting Fellow on the Russia and Eurasia Programme at the think tank Chatham House. Keir Giles, welcome. 6 months on, can what we see in Ukraine be perceived in Russia in any way as a successful operation?
Well, the problem is the Russian leadership can spin anything as a success because of this total information control that it has within the country, and also the total control of what people are actually allowed to discuss between themselves and to say. Now, as your correspondent in Moscow just said, people simply aren't able to express their opinions on the war, even if they're able to access information about it, which, as you just heard, is being suppressed. If I'm not mistaken, even your correspondent was careful not to refer to this as a war, because, of course, restrictions affect foreign journalists in Moscow as well. What that means is that Russia is at liberty to spin any development in this war as a success to its own population, and it's already reinvented what victory means several times.
Can we talk about global support, international support for Ukraine? Winter is round the corner. This invasion is not showing any sign of resolution. Some have described it as stalemate. What are your predictions for the impact of the global energy crisis and the cost of living crisis on that international support for Ukraine?
Well, that's one of the ways in which this war probably won't be decided on the battlefield. Instead, it's the extent to which Ukraine can continue mustering that international political support to keep it fighting, to maintain not only the military supplies, but also the economic backing that it needs to continue functioning as a state, while Russia is strangling its economy, but also blackmailing the rest of the world with gas supplies, with grain supplies, with all of the different ways that it can increase the costs for the rest of the world of backing Ukraine. Now, Moscow hopes that the pressure will mount on Ukraine to make some kind of concession, to surrender, in effect, to what Russia wants, and that's going to grow stronger as we move into winter, and the full impact of these skyrocketing energy prices makes itself felt across Europe.
A former Russian mayor is the latest person arrested on charges of discrediting Vladimir Putin's army. Is being critical simply not an option for the Russians? Is there any chance of another narrative?
There is always the option of being critical, but more and more Russians now understand that that's an extremely unhealthy option. We shouldn't forget that in the lead up to this conflict, just as Russia's aggressive posture towards the rest of the world was becoming clearer, they were also cracking down on domestic dissent. All of the previous ways in which people could vent their opposition feelings were gradually being closed off, and the repressions of any kind of protest were gradually becoming more and more brutal. So it's now an act of bravery to speak out against the war or even about the war, and people know that that brings instant and unpleasant consequences.
Let's look ahead, perhaps months or even years. How long will the shadow of Ukraine loom over Russia in the future?
That, just like the outcome of the conflict, depends on how the rest of the world maintains its support for Ukraine and whether or not they're actually able to inflict a defeat on Russia, a defeat that can't be explained away to Russia's own population, that can't be spun into some narrative of Russia having achieved some kind of success. If President Putin comes away from this conflict thinking that the war has been anything other than a disaster and a catastrophic strategic blunder, that will just lead Russia to build up its forces and its power once again and have another attempt in the future, as it's done so many times before. Because the basic reasons for Russia wanting to conduct genocidal wars of aggression against its neighbors simply won't have gone away.
Keir Giles at Chatham House, thank you very much indeed for talking to us.